The views expressed on the Nova Society are those of the panelists and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Phoenix Research Institute or any institution which any panel member is associated. Welcome back to the Nova Society, the space where dialogue deepens understanding and civic responsibility comes to life. I'm Dr. Mark Bound, joined by our regular panel, Dr. Scott Gershwer and Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon. Together, we'll unpack the stories that matter most, exploring the headlines, the history, and the big ideas shaping today's conversations. Let's dive in and hear what the panel has for us today.
Today we have a question from Heiner, who writes to us from Berlin, Germany. And Heiner writes, unless anyone was wondering, there is very little public support here for President Trump's war in Iran. And by all accounts, Americans are growing even less supportive as the conflict drags on with no clear end in sight. During wartime, my countrymen and I understand the need for strategic secrecy. You've mentioned this many times on the podcast. But we're now seeing increasing coverage questioning U.S. armament levels and the depletion of American stockpiles. Even acknowledging that the true state of U.S. weapons reserves is obscured by the fog of war, some of President Trump's recent moves have caught my attention. He threatens major strikes, then abruptly backs off. He pivots from military escalation to talk of total economic strangulation, quote unquote, as the primary tool of pressure. So here's my question to the panel. Is this shift toward economic warfare a signal that U.S. weapons stockpiles may be in worse condition than many assume? Is the administration recalibrating the strategy because the military toolbox is more limited than officials are willing to publicly admit? If America has weakened itself engaging in this stupid war, how vulnerable do you think America is? How vulnerable is Europe from Russian aggression if America can't even muster the weapons necessary to end the war in Iran? And what about the rest of the world? Is China looking on and planning something? These are excellent questions, Heiner. Thank you for writing to us from Deutschland, from Berlin, and yeah.
So it's great to hear from Germany, ascendant in Europe again. Nothing that could ever go wrong, Heiner. But look, if I was sitting in Berlin right now, I'd be real worried about Putin. And I would be looking at Poland and saying, man, Poland's a road apple. Poland is ripe for plucking. And Putin probably thinks that he's going to run roughshod over them, as has happened in the past. Hopefully that doesn't happen. I will say this about our weapons. There's one weapon that we have that we haven't run out of, because we haven't used them since 1945. And that is our nuclear arsenal, which is very formidable, I am assuming.
We think,
yeah. And there have been stories that Trump has demanded that we use those weapons, and that his advisors have stomped out of the Oval Office, stomped out of the White House, that they said, no, we can't use that. And Trump is on the record as saying, if you have these things and you don't use them, what's the point of having them? Scary stuff, for sure. But we have those weapons. And I would much rather see Trump, do the taco thing once again and say, okay, from now on, we're not fighting a war with missiles and rockets and guns and airplanes. We're going to fight an economic war. Bravo, sir. Thank you very much. We really appreciate that. Yes. Brooke, go ahead.
Yeah, that's because Trump, to my understanding, has a lack of understanding of what a tactical nuclear weapon is, and he believes that he doesn't understand what fallout actually is, and that a tactical nuclear weapon is small and it's just a little bomb. and that it can be used strategically on a battlefield, and that it's not what he believes it is. And of course, he doesn't understand, and he thinks he understands, and he believes that these are actually usable without consequence. And of course, he doesn't think anything through, and he believes it's the Dunning-Kruger effect. He believes he has massive knowledge and understanding when in fact he has what he knows could balance on the pointy end of a pin with plenty of room left over. Anyway, so go ahead.
Well, I mean, I think that's it. What else can you say? We're not winning this war with weapons. We're not winning this war. The best thing that we can do is find some way for Trump to declare victory and leave it to other countries to deal with Iran and their nuclear ambitions, should they still have them, which I mean, basically all Trump has managed to do is turn Iran into a global power from a regional power, and pretty much assuring that if they want to have nuclear weapons, they will. And there's nothing that we can do to stop it. And what it used to be that was a question. It used to be assumed that we could stop them if we wanted to. But once you blow that, once you can't annihilate their military, you can sink their navy, but they have other weapons. As long as they can control that strait, they can control a fifth of the oil that goes, around the world. They're going to have that ability to shut that down anytime they want. And so this war is over and they have won. And Trump can pull the troops out. He can withdraw from those bases that have been surrounding Iran for decades. And he can simply say, well, we're going to fight them on the economic front, with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent saying that there's going to be a financial equivalent of an atomic bomb. And that's better than continuing fighting, because Heiner, 35% of Americans supported this war when it started, and now the opposition has risen to 58%. So this is not a popular thing here in the United States, probably any more than it is in Germany, and we want out. We've had to learn to live with a nuclear North Korea. We're going to have to learn to live with a nuclear Iran. And there's nothing that we can do to stop it.
And also sorry, Scott, what you were saying reminded me, we will have to leave. There's also no diplomatic solution, because we were in talks, of course, over that weekend, and then Trump went ahead and bombed them. So, and then he promised a relief of sanctions and that they would have their money back, and then he never delivered it. And then there was a memorandum of understanding that Trump signed, and that he immediately violated while blaming the Iranians for violating. That he said, of course, that they violated it while he was violating it himself. So nothing that Trump says, as he has shown throughout his lifetime, can be trusted. So you can't make a deal with him either. And as Trump has shown with other countries around the world, so he violates agreements constantly. So there's no point in even attempting to sign a treaty or make any kind of deal. So diplomacy is not going to work either. So there's no option for the Iranians. They have to, in my view, I mean, if I were the Americans have to leave. Period. I don't see what other choice. I don't see what other choice Trump has. And of course, I mean, look at the reflecting pool in this whole ridiculous
Well,
situation. And I mean, Trump can't even say that the poor guy. I mean, he wants to put this poor man in jail for 10 years for looking at a piece of the bottom, and Trump has to continuously say that oh, you know, people cut it up. I mean, a concrete bottom with a box cutter. I
Right,
mean,
right.
if people believe that, or a knife. I mean,
All right.
go ahead and take a concrete block,
Oh God!
take a
All right.
box cutter or a knife in your
I-
hand. No, for
Brooke,
anybody who believes
Brooke,
this.
You're making a great point. No doubt. There's no doubt about it.
But seriously,
But that's not what the question is. It has nothing to do.
No, but
I'm looking
making
at
a
the
point.
question. Nothing about the reflecting pool is in this question,
I
so
wanna
we're going
make
to
a
let that
point.
one go. All right.
But may I make a point?
to your point, yeah, I
But
think
may
you
I
made
make
your
a
point.
I want to make a point about to the listener and anybody who I mean, looking at Trump's personality. This is the problem. And anybody who believes anything that Trump says. Oh, with and it the whole his personality is perfectly illustrated with this reflecting pool. And there are people who will believe what Trump says. Oh yeah, people cut this thing up with box cutters or a knife. All right, so you know, you take a concrete block and take a knife or a box cutter in your hand, and you try to dig a trench with a box cutter or a knife and see how well that goes for you.
Okay.
I mean, the whole thing is stupid. But even with that, Trump cannot admit he is wrong. So, what are the chances of Trump's pulling out when he has that bias for the last person who talks to him? I mean, this is the problem. We have to leave. I agree. And Trump has to say, "Oh, we won." But then someone else is going to come along and say, "Oh, you're not looking strong. You're looking weak." But we have to leave, and this has to end. And soybean farmer Scott Besson, for example, can say, "Oh, we're going to have economic warfare now." I don't see that we're even in a position to do that. We're not in a position to do anything.
Right. Okay. So, you know, regardless of Trump's personality and his propensity to be a pathological liar, which really has nothing to do with any of this, he's going to say, we won. As I've said before, the MAGA morons are going to believe him. And, you know, that's all there's going to be to it. Same thing with I won the 2020 election, or the 2020 election was rigged, or I would have won California. Everybody and their brother knows that's a bunch of bullshit. It is what it is. But somehow he has this uncanny ability to convince himself that his poll numbers right now are the highest they've ever been for any president, and he's the favorite president of everybody. So, you know, that aside, sometimes we get too deep into the weeds of Trump's personality. This thing here is about, do we believe that our stockpiles are worse off than we're being told? And there has been an awful lot of reporting done. A lot of people that, you know, again, are not directly involved, but have been as far as in the military and been in the Defense Department and stuff, that really is signaling a fact that, hey, you know what? We may be worse off than we think. And there have been reports from manufacturers of weapons that are saying that they're being pressured by the government to increase and speed up their resupply, which is not as easy as it sounds. It's not like you just snap your fingers and boom, there we go. We got some of this stuff back. So yeah, Heiner, the idea that we're looking now at an economic, maybe that has something to do with the fact that our stockpiles, our weapons are being depleted. From reports, we've had anywhere from 50% depletion to whatever. To lower than that. So I don't, again, you're right. Fog of war, we don't know. We don't know. But when the strategy begins to change from, hey, I'm going to bomb you tomorrow. Oh, never mind. I'm not going to do it. That tells me something is going on that keeps you from doing it. And maybe you don't have the capacity, or maybe you don't want to use up what little capacity you still have left. Again, that's just an assumption on the part. I would rather, as Scott, see him say, hey, we won. That's it. Pull back. Thank you very much. Be over and done with. Let the people that are stupid enough to believe him put on their little red hats and go cheering out there and say, oh, yeah, look at us do. And
maybe have a parade.
maybe have a parade or two. I don't know, whatever. Do whatever you think you got to do to make yourself feel better, and move on. And move on. You want to do this economically, fine. Let's remember something else about diplomacy. We talk a lot about diplomacy. Diplomacy requires that each side has something of value to the other side. You've got to have some leverage. Diplomacy does not work when, number one, you go in with a zero-sum attitude of I want everything and you get nothing, and number two, when you walk in and you have no leverage whatsoever. If you do not have leverage, you have nothing. Now, to Brooke's point, if you also have a leader who you cannot trust, well, that's another issue you have. But that's one you can actually work around a little bit. You can work around that a little bit more than, the zero-sum attitude and the I have nothing to offer in this discussion kind of attitude. So, we may be weaker. We have shown them. I've said this before. When Russia attacked Ukraine, I think they showed that they were a paper tiger all along. Their equipment is old. It's outdated. Now, like Scott said, if he was in Berlin right now, he'd be worried. Me, not so much. They can't beat Ukraine. Just imagine the Poles. Just imagine the Germans. Just imagine if they can't beat Ukraine, and they've been at this for quite a long time, they're sure as hell not going to beat the Poles. Now, the Balkan states, those maybe. I know one thing: they don't want to mess with Finland, because Finland kicks the shit out of them every time they do. They don't want to mess with the Swedes. They don't want to mess with the Norwegians. They don't want to mess with now the Balkans. Who knows? Maybe. Don't know. But the fact is that, no, we're at a point now where we don't know what the stockpile is. We don't know what's going on as far as American capabilities are right now. And again, you're not going to get the truth because you're right. We don't want to give anything away that we don't have to. But if I'm Europe, I think that you got to look at Russia's success in Ukraine or lack thereof. I think that's got to make you feel a little bit better. I truly do think that has to make you feel a little bit better. As far as China, your guess is as good as ours. Who knows?
You were saying about Ukraine. I was speaking with my last remaining Russian student who lives in St. Petersburg, and I asked about the fires, the drone hits from Ukraine, and he said actually for the past 2-3 years they've had drones hitting from Ukraine, and he doesn't even pay any attention to them anymore. They've become so common. But yes, there are drone strikes and hitting of oil facilities and fires and so forth. Well, I think that we are probably worse off with the weapons than we're being told, given that Hegseth and Trump are the people who are doing the talking. And they can be counted on to falsify and make the picture look better than it actually is.
It does raise a question though. What'd you do with the money? I mean, we spend a lot of money on defense. What happened to that money? Where is that taxpayer money? Evidently, it's not in missiles. And so we still buying, $400 kettles and $500 toilet seats, and that's where the money is going. We've seen that before, but it really is kind of scary when you think about. And they can blame Biden all they want, but if they knew that they didn't have the missiles, they shouldn't have gone into this war. And just to build on something Brooke was making the point of earlier, I think Brooke, you made your point. If Trump couldn't beat Kilmar Abrego Garcia, he shouldn't have thought that he could beat Iran, and he lost that one too. So his miscalculations here are the sign of a weak man who pretends to be a strong man, and that doesn't end up well. As long once you start throwing punches, if everybody sees that your punches are weak and that there's nothing behind them, they're not afraid of you anymore. And I don't think Iran is afraid of the United States anymore, and I don't think anybody else is either. I certainly don't think China is. I certainly don't think Russia is. And I'm pretty sure that we talked before in another podcast about Erdogan and what he's up to in the Middle East, and I think Erdogan is looking at Trump and going, man, I'm a lot stronger than you are, and I'm in this region, and I've got the backing of better people than you have. None of this is any good for the United States. It's going to take a long time for us to regain whatever mystic, reputation we had before. And we've really blown it.
And you know what,
If
Scott,
we even can.
It may be best in our best interest not to regain it, because maybe then we could spend our money on nice things.
Yeah, maybe we could have nice things, right?
Yeah,
we could have nice things.
Our roads and fix
although
our bridges.
I do find it, I mean, look, F-35s, there was a time when I said one F-35 could have turned the Ukrainian-Russian war over to the Ukrainians. I don't believe that anymore.
No.
Right? Iran has been very good at shooting down planes, apparently. And everything that we've tried, and we don't know what it is because we know that all we know is that Trump is lying.
Yeah.
And there was no pilot that they rescued. They've never produced that guy. The casualties are worse than we think. He likes to talk about nuclear dust. I'm fairly certain that there's more than just dust. I don't even know what he's talking. Nobody knows what he's talking about. He's trying to make a point to the Red Hats that he's destroyed their capabilities, so there's nothing left behind but the dust for them to scoop up into into a dustpan and try to recover it or something along those lines. It's just absurd, like one absurdity after another. It's laughable.
Yeah, it is. No, you were making a point about the Chinese, and to Heiner's question, the Chinese, as I understand, are providing and have been providing the Iranians with various technological capabilities, high-tech weaponry and radar and things of that nature. And also the first thing when Trump and Xi had that summit months ago, the first thing that Xi said to Trump was to beware of the Thucydides trap, and Trump she said to remember Thucydides, and Trump, of course, didn't know what he was talking about, and had to have it explained to him on the trip back.
Oh, God.
And once he had it explained to him, of course, he wasn't too happy. But I think that's where we are now. And she is no dope, unlike Trump. Oh. I don't think we get our mystique back once we've lost it. I think it's going to take quite a while for...
You're probably right.
It's going to take quite a while for America to understand that we've lost it. I mean, most Americans. But the rest of the world, they're not the MAGA people, and they're not the Republican Party. They don't care how much Trump yells and screams on his back and kicks and yells and holds his breath and turns purple when he doesn't get what he wants. He's nothing to them.
In any other time, the Republican Party would be going up to the White House, and senators would be and members of the House would be going up there and saying, "Sir, you need to resign. This is over. This has been a fiasco."
Yep.
I don't understand what they're doing over there.
How about nothing?
Yeah, apparently.
There's the answer. Okay.
Love starting the week out like this.
Depressed. Yeah. All right, And that's all the time we have for today's episode. The Nova Society is a production of Nova Society Media, a division of the Phoenix Research Institute. We want to thank our production partners, Buzzsprout, who hosts the Nova Society, Audacity, our editing team, Apple Podcasts, the largest source of podcast and music online, Spotify, the most popular platform for the Nova Society, and iHeartRadio, your destination for all things music and podcasting. The Nova Society is available on all of these and other quality platforms listed in our description. And most importantly, we want to thank you, our listeners. Without your support, the Nova Society could not be possible. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing on the platform of your choice. It's easy, it's free, and helps our channel grow. For questions or comments, you can reach us at nova.society.podcast@gmail.com. So on behalf of Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, Dr. Scott Gershwer, and all of our production partners here at the Nova Society, I'm Dr. Mark Bound. Remember, the true power of society is knowledge. Thank you for listening, and we hope to see you again next time. We'd like to thank our sponsor for this episode, the Journal of Interdisciplinary Conflict Sciences, the JICS. This open access journal, double peer-reviewed, provides a platform for emerging scholars to publish their work and engage in meaningful dialogue across disciplines. The JICS is currently accepting article submissions on an ongoing basis and is published through the NovaWorks Scholarly Repository at Nova Southeastern University. You'll find a link to the journal in our episode description.